Someone once told me that your very worst day can be your very best day, depending on how you look at it. I remember being in college at the time, Dowling, Bohemia, Long Island, taking some final class to complete my bachelor's. I was 29 years old. Yes, I got my degree late. Got 3.5 years while working full-time as a research analyst. And that's when two planes flew into the World Trade Center towers. Of course, you all know the story. But for me, I don't know if I shared the details on the podcast before. I mentioned it from New York, was there at the time. But 2 days after this happened, I was with a friend, an ex at the time, and we hopped on the M train, which was a train I took from Queens, New York, worked the city, goes directly downtown to Wall Street in the World Trade Center. So it was just a 35-minute commute, one train, which is great, from New York City to Queens. And by the way, if you're not familiar with New York, it's very, very quick for a commute. Some people live in Suffolk County or Westchester outside of the city and commute an hour and a half, sometimes longer, just one way to get door to door to New York City. It's crazy. My commute was pretty good, 35 minutes. Now, they closed off every bridge, every train station, and you couldn't get into the city unless you were a city worker, firefighter, police officer. Again, just close it down. I said, screw it. I really want to go. I want to see this, and let's see if we can get in because I really want to see it. And it meant a lot to me because I know people that died. Some of my friends were covered with dust who couldn't get out of the city for 48 hours. In fact, I have one friend whose brother-in-law was very, very high up the chain, the PD, and after the planes hit, he was downtown at the time, rushed downtown, and it was him, Mayor Giuliani, and a couple of high-profile people. Again, the plane's already crashed. It's like chaos. It's nuts. And they're waiting to run in to save these people, but they needed the buildings commissioner to sign off at first. So the building commissioner gets there, rushes there, gets there as quick as he can, and they decide and say, hey, the buildings are safe. There's no way that those towers are coming down. I'm not faulting them. I mean, nobody even thought in a million years that those towers are coming down, especially with the planes hit all the way to the top. So my friend's brother-in-law sent a team of officers to rescue people. And then the first tower collapsed. The second one, almost every one of them died. Now, think of that was you. I mean, how fucked up would you be for the rest of your life since he knew some of those families, the officers that he sent in? If it was up to him, he would have went in, but he's in charge, right? He has to get his orders directly from the mayor, report them. I mean, messed up for life. And stories like that aren't mentioned in the papers, very easily forgotten because it happened a long time ago. Anyway, the train we took went right to the World Trade Center. And each stop, probably around 10 stops, whatever it is, there's police officers getting on, city workers getting on. They was getting on a train. Nobody said nothing to us. We just sat there like we were supposed to be there. I was amazed that we got through. It took us all the way to Chambers Street right by the Trade Center. It's a sight that even to this day is difficult to describe. You had dust in the air. Not easy to breathe. I mean, no one was really wearing masks. We didn't know at the time, how dangerous it was. Some people were. They're standing on the site, the rubble, which was the World Trade Center. Firefighters were going through it, searching for people because it was still a search and rescue mission, at least to the bodies they found, but everybody knew there's going to be no survivors. I'll never forget seeing the faces of people, just blank stares, tears in people's eyes, like they couldn't believe what they were seeing, wondering how the hell could this happen in America? More crazy, how could something like this happen to the greatest city in the world? That's the worst part. We spent half the day down there, again, walking around. Starbucks, McDonald's, stores that were lucky to be a few blocks away from the damage, they were giving everything away for free to workers. People were bringing bottles of waters, cases, masks to the police officers and firefighters. There was no racism, no gender discrimination, no Democrats, Republicans. Everyone was the same. They were all working together to help people during one of the most darkest times America has ever seen. Lest God forbid, world wars. It's insane. And I remember getting the chills, seeing the kindness, the patriotism, like the caring. And people were proud to be an American. They're wearing red, white, and blue shirts. They're wearing badges with our flag on. You saw the flag displayed everywhere, on buildings, every place, the U.S. flag, everywhere, including the firemen. There's 3 firemen that were raising that flagpole, that famous picture. We saw that. We didn't know it was going to be a big deal back then. They did that just the day before, but it was there, and people were just honoring it. It was coming out of the rubble. I mean, again, famous picture. It's everywhere. You guys have seen it before. And everyone understood, right, that yes, we all have differences. We come from different backgrounds. We all have strong opinions. But at the end of the day, when shit like this happens, we all drop the bullshit. We all work together. We all love each other, and we're Americans. And that's what I remember the most from that day, the positives, right? You know, it's a terrible day, depending on how you look at it, and seeing those people come together. Sometimes it could be a really great day. Now, ever since that terrible tragedy, on September 11th, they have a special ceremony, which is called the Tribute of Light, where they installed 88 vertical searchlights. Searchlights, you know how big one searchlight is? 88 of them. On top of its battery parking garage, which is a few blocks away from the World Trade Center. And they represent the Twin Towers. They shoot all the way up in the air. So these beams of light shoot to the sky. They can be seen 60 miles away. Almost anywhere in the 5 boroughs, northern New Jersey, parts of Connecticut, Westchester, Long Island. It's an incredibly powerful symbol. That gives me chills just talking about it right now. It's something that always brings New Yorkers together when we see that. Seeing those lights shoot up to the sky in the middle of the night to honor those nearly 3,000 innocent people who lost their lives. It's a day that symbolizes patriotism, hope, unity. We remember even during the darkest moments, the darkest times, we're always going to rise, always come together in times of need, because America's the greatest place on earth, and New York City is the greatest city in the world. There's no disagreement on that in the world. If you think it's crazy, go anywhere. I've been to places where people hardly speak English in really, really like rural areas all over the world. They don't speak English at all. You say New York, New York. Everyone has people that they all want to go. The whole world, everybody wants to see it. It is the greatest city in the world. Now, every single year since 2001, the Tribute of Light ceremony has taken place on September 11th. They said, oh, they're going to do it 10 years, 15 years. Now it's going, they keep doing it. It's still a huge, huge event for every single person that lives in New York. Again, something that brings people together. It creates happiness at a time when I think today, right, most people need it because there's so much hate depending on which channel you watch, right? I mean, it would be nice watching a Democrat National Convention. I mean, someone's telling the campaign managers, you know what? America believes in hope. They don't like hate. They don't like angry people. We don't like angry people. So figure out how you're going to make things better instead of just yelling at everybody and how everything is terrible. The best thing to do, if you really want to get votes from that middle piece, you're not going to touch the left, you're not going to touch the right. They're going to vote for whoever they want. If you want that middle, be positive. What are you going to do? There's no plans. There's nothing being outlined. Just hate. You're going to be terrible condition, everything. You got actors and actresses on there like who've made $10 million over the past 4 or 5 years, and they're worried. I have no idea what they're worried about. But really, if you want to get into the heads of people and talk directly to them, talk about what you're going to do to change it and how you're going to make it better, right? That's what America's about. That's what we want. We want to be the best country in the world. We want to be awesome. We don't want to talk about the negatives. Stop being so angry. And right now, it's on both sides where you see a lot of anger back and forth. I mean, you have friends, I'm sure, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you have a friend on the other side. As soon as you start talking politics, there's people you won't even talk to anymore. That's how heated it gets. Even though, hey, you have a different opinion than me, big deal. Everything I've known about you that I've grown up is fantastic. You're a great person. You care about your family. You care about, you work hard. But yet, it's resulting in huge division. And you're looking at September 11th, right? Every single year. That's the one thing that brings New Yorkers together, no matter what. But Bill de Blasio, who's the mayor of New York City, decided to cancel this ceremony. His excuse? Because he's afraid that people operating it, basically turning a light switch on, are going to get COVID and die. Interesting. Because Blasio doesn't seem too worried about catching COVID when he decided to paint Black Lives Matter in front of the Trump Tower in July, right? Dozens of protesters, some of them have masks on. That's okay. Those people are different. They don't have to worry about catching COVID and dying. They're fine. They're fine. But the people going to turn on that light switch, nope, we're canceling that. Canceling that. And that was last month. This will we even know more about the coronavirus, right? All the numbers are getting better. We know that nearly every person under the age of 50 who gets infected with coronavirus is not going to die. Look at the CDC data. If you're under 50, if you take that whole entire sector, it compares to the flu when it comes to fatality rate of the people infected. I showed you the numbers. If you take out the people in the danger zone, even going up to 60 years old, and you combine the rest of the stats, that's how low it is. We know what this disease targets, who they target, and we know a lot about it, and we know that. Doesn't matter. And again, for all you doubters about the information, whatever channel you want, it's go on my Twitter account. I posted it on Twitter. Just look at the charts. CDC, right? Everybody believes CDC, right? Both sides. Unbiased. Just look at it. It's going to measure, ease your fears that are being spread by people who have an agenda. Again, just reporting facts to you. But hey, let's cancel the September 11th Tribute to the Light ceremony because of people that they're going to die of COVID. So de Blasio, not only are you destroying the greatest city on earth by reducing the amount of police on the streets, allowing violent protests to take place, right? These are all facts, and the homeless now being mandated, hotels that are now drug havens, allowing protesters to block streets that taxpayers pay for the right to use. See it everywhere. But by canceling the September 11th ceremony, you took it to another level. Because it doesn't show that you're incompetent or an idiot, right? That doesn't know how to read simple statistics. No, it doesn't show that. I'd understand that. This shows that you're a piece of shit. Purposely, on purpose, preventing New Yorkers from coming together, of course, unless you're protesting. New Yorkers from being united. Supporting a cause that's so incredibly important to them. So incredibly important to them. On purpose. With no data and no facts. Now we look at New York City on de Blasio's watch. And Mayor of New York City, you're the man in charge, you're the chief, head coach, leader, CEO, numero uno, whatever you want to go, call it whatever. Decided to cut $1 billion from the police budget. More than 15%. Reducing the amount of police officers on the street, right? Also elected to disband the NYPD's plainclothes anti-crime unit, which has resulted in what? Homicides being up 30% year over year. Shootings are up over 80%, including 51 shootings in New York City this past weekend. Place I lived all my life. Shootings never happen. Rare. It's safer than ever. Statistics have been fantastic. If you look at those 51 shootings this past week, it compares to 8 last year. This amounts to the highest amount in 25 years. We're just through August. Even still got a while to go. So by taking police off the street, you're purposely inciting violence. There's crack pipes on the street. Talk to people who live there. I do all the time. My friends still live there. Everybody, I know a lot of people do business there. Talk to them. I have a friend that just went to the doctor today. He's like, I got to get out of here by 5 o'clock because he's scared. He has a doctor's appointment. His doctor's located in New York City. He lives outside New York City. He went to New York City, and he's like, we got to get out of here. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to get out of there. He's got to leave before it gets dark out because they're allowed to stop streets, stop you, can't drive. God forbid they pull you out of the car. But you're looking at the needles on the streets, something reminiscent of the 80s. Homeless, down 20% plus of the hotels in New York City. That's what they're occupying, which mostly drug infested from these people. And taxpayers, by the way, paying 25% of that. Body armor sales are up 80%. New York City gun sales are up 120% in June. I told you even I got a gun. I never thought in a million years I'd buy a gun. And my wife wouldn't buy a gun either. No, I don't want it in the house. Now we want it, just in case. Just in case. I mean, you're seeing it out there. People have to come up to houses, say whatever they want to you. They could break in if you incite anything. And thank God it's in Florida, you're allowed to carry guns. But, there's guys that came out with the AKA. I mean, they're really getting indicted for all those people breaking into their property. It's crazy. But anyway, you're looking at restaurants still remain closed despite the data. Positive data. Now, positive data, again, the amount of people below the age of 50 who die of coronavirus, very, 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 very low. Looking at almost everyone that I know who works in New York City and lives there is moving. Want proof of that? Southampton, that's where a lot of rich people in New York City own homes. School enrollment in Southampton is up 26%. What does that mean? They're not leaving for a few weeks. They're gone. They're enrolling their kids outside of New York City. They won't send their kids there. Goodbye. They're gone. That premium to live in New York is gone. Let's talk about COVID under your watch for de Blasio. Topic I'd say I'm pretty familiar with, right? If you've listened to the podcast since January, especially when it comes to statistics. Over 32,400, probably 32,500 today. These statistics as of yesterday, Tuesday. 32,450 people in New York City have died of COVID. That ranks fourth, not fourth by state. If New York City was a country, it ranks fourth behind Spain, France, Italy, and the UK. The only places that have more deaths as a country than New York from COVID. Why is that? Because you decided to put infected people into nursing homes. It's like putting 100 beehives in a room filled with people highly allergic to bee stings. Again, I'll give it to you. Nobody knew what was going on at the time. It's a new virus. We make bad decisions. The fact you don't own it, nobody wants to own it, is incredible. Again, you're numero uno. You're New York City. You're the man in charge. That's you. So to further put these numbers in perspective for New York City, there are 430 confirmed COVID cases in New York City. Believe it or not, that's not ranked number one by state. Not even number two and number three. It's actually ranked number four behind California with 635,000 cases, Florida 580,000, and Texas with 570,000 cases of people infected with COVID. So all have a higher amount of cases, but the death rate is what is the most important thing. The death rate of infected for California is 1.8%. The death rate of infected for Florida is 1.7%. Death rate infected for Texas, 1.8%. The death rate of infected in New York is 7.5%, more than 3x more than the most populated states in America. Yet, Mrs. de Blasio, the handling of COVID in New York City and the fact that New York City is a war zone that's unsafe for any family to walk at night. They're not going to walk at night. It's dangerous. But it's not your fault. Again, you're the mayor, you run the show, tell everyone what to do. But no. It's not your fault. Instead, you're blaming the police, who you took off the streets. It's their fault people are getting shot. It's Donald Trump and the Republicans' fault. They only got 18%. Republicans got 18% of the vote in New York City from the last election. And 80% of New York's congressional delegation is Democrats. How's it the Republicans' fault? Nice try, though. Nice try. I get it. But de Blasio being the mayor of New York City and blaming everyone else for the city being run down, broke, unsafe, where criminals are not even getting punished, where they're being captured, beating up innocent people. They're not. People have been going after them. They're breaking windows, looting, burning cars, buildings, shooting at people, attacking police officers. And even when they're caught, these people are out the next day and a few $1,000s in bail. They're high-fiving the protesters to get out. Hey, I'm out. Great. So glad you hit that police officer in the head with that pipe. Good for you. You're out already. It's insane. But Blasio, I'm going to let you in on almost something. Because being the mayor of a city, any mayor of a city, and blaming everyone else for becoming a shithole, and you compare it to stock. It's like Tesla going bankrupt and Elon Musk blaming his shareholders. They just stopped buying the stock. They screwed the company. It wasn't me. We're producing here. No, it's Elon Musk's fault. There's a reason why we have mayors and governors in place. That's a reason for that. You won't even accept any help from the federal government. Nope, not for violence, not for protests. If you do, we're going to fight it. We're going to fight it. We're not going to accept any help. And to use Black Lives Matter to further your agenda is an absolute disgrace. And seriously, if you really cared about Black lives, you would listen to them. Over 80% more police on the streets, not less. And you look at it, many have seen their homes looted, businesses destroyed, decades of hard work completely gone. As you, not because you're incompetent, purposely push your agenda of chaos, more crime, fear. And for me, it's I never thought I would see a time when families can no longer walk in the streets of New York City at night. Can't go through Times Square watching all the city performers. You can watch at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, jumping around in suits. It's the greatest thing. It's so cool. You can't see that anywhere. You don't see that anywhere at 2 in the morning. Stores and restaurants open through the night. So congratulations. You managed to purposely destroy over 30 years of economic prosperity in New York City. And you did it in just a few months. But it's not your fault. It's not your fault. No problem. And by the way, if you're listening to this, say, oh, wait, it's Democrat, Republican. We didn't see this happen under Bloomberg. I'm not a big fan of Bloomberg because he's a serious control freak. He wants to control the way people eat, people act. I didn't like that. He would have never, ever, ever, ever allowed this to happen. This didn't happen on his watch. Not a Republican. Giuliani never allowed this to happen either. Had a lot of cleaning up to do. Even Andrew Cuomo, who's the governor of New York, who did a remarkable job at the Democratic convention talking about how great he did for New York City during COVID. I mean, what the fuck? It's okay. It's okay to be, everybody was wrong. It's okay to be wrong. It's a time where we never saw anything like this. Fauci has been so wrong. President's been so wrong. Everybody's been so wrong because this is new. No one thought you were going to shut down. Nobody saw this come. Nobody saw at the extent that this was coming. It was going to cause that many deaths. So there's a lot of mistakes to go around. Own them and learn from them, and hopefully we could save lives. But New York's death rate from COVID, the idea to send a massive ship with hospital beds in New York City that you never ended up using, simply because the numbers were out of control, Cuomo deserves some responsibility for this as well as de Blasio, where putting people in nursing homes created that death spike. Without that death spike, COVID would be so different right now. Because that was the first thing we saw in New York City. And we're like, holy cow, this thing really kills people. It's killing 10% of the people who get infected. This is like SARS. Everybody get out. It's not. That's why the rate's dropping, because we're smart. We're keeping those people who this disease targets safer. But having that speech, Democratic convention, come on, you could say, hey, New York's doing good. You can't brag about the job you did, buddy. Give me a break. Anyway, get back to Cuomo. When talking about the job de Blasio is doing, and these guys don't like each other. Both Democrats, they don't like each other. He said that New York City was slipping back into the bad old days of the 70s and 80s. And on June 2nd, not long ago, he says he has the ability to remove de Blasio from office, but he did stress we're not at that point yet. You don't really hear that from a governor. Yes, he could remove the mayor. And he said it on June 2nd. Right? But he also said, hey, we're not at that point yet. Mr. Cuomo, the point you're talking about, you just drove by it doing 90 miles an hour. It's here. What else are you waiting for? The entire city to burn down? 100% of the people living in New York gone for good in New York City? Is that what you're waiting for? What point are you talking about? We're not at that point yet. Are you kidding me? Have you been to New York City? Are you there right now? We're just broadcasting from a nice little place, wherever, safe environment, where you're being protected by police. Going on Zoom. What are you talking about? What point? We're not at that point yet. We're there. De Blasio needs to be removed. This is being done on purposely, creating an unsafe environment, not condemning violent protesters, purposely taking police off the streets to protect and serve innocent people. I keep saying it's not an incompetent person making horrible decisions because he's just stupid. This is a guy that's dangerous. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's keeping the economy closed. Schools are still closed. Churches are still closed in New York. Churches. And by canceling September 11th, that lighting ceremony, for fears that people would die of COVID, again, here's the guys painting Black Lives Matters and protesting everywhere, right? It's the nail in the coffin. I mean, it shows this man's going to do everything to keep New Yorkers from uniting, New Yorkers from coming together to honor and remember the 3,000 innocent people who died on September 11th, which impacted every single person living in New York City. It's something where we all come together, put our differences aside, and just remember. Now, the one bright spot here, Andrew Cuomo, this a couple days ago, is reversing course and said de Blasio should have done more to protect this event, so he's putting safety measures in place to make sure the tribute and light ceremony takes place. Don't you think you need it now more than ever? Good job on that, Cuomo. If you're from New York, you know how important this event is. I know you want to keep everyone divided. It's better. It's going to support some people's agenda. But not this event, guys. Come on, not this event. You can't tell me protesting is absolutely fine, yet that tribute light ceremony is not because of COVID. It's just a joke. So I'm glad Andrew Cuomo did the right thing. And again, it's nice. Isn't it nice when you just simply, it's the right thing to do? Isn't it nice? Now, I usually bring a lot of this stuff back to investments. This is more of a personal thing for me, for New York. And hearing the stories from my friends that call it, Frank, you have no idea. You have no idea. Everyone's the same. You have no idea. We can't go to the city. It's crazy. And yes, it is going to have significant impacts when you're basically shutting down the greatest city economy in the world. Where rich people are leaving and going back to the 80s, it will have significant consequences. But de Blasio, he has to go. He's not doing this because he's incompetent. He's not doing this to make it. He's doing this on purpose, and it's resulting in people's lives. More violence, a worse experience, someone that needs to be removed. I know there's a couple of years left and he's gone. Should get him out of there before that. I don't care if it was a Republican or a Democrat, someone who's doing this purposely, removing police from the streets and making places more dangerous. People have lived there their entire lives is absolutely insane. End of rant.